Scattered through almost every score you will ever open are little italic letters, P, F, and pairs of them tucked under the staff. They look like somebody's initials, but they are Italian words, and they tell you something the notes themselves never can. They tell you how loud to play. Think about that for a second. The note heads on the page fix the pitch and the rhythm. They tell you which key and for how long. But two players can read those exact same note heads, and one can make you cry while the other puts you to sleep, and the difference is very often these letters. The pitches give you the tune. The dynamics give you the weight, the push, the breath behind it. Strip them out and a melody is just a shape with no force behind it, like a sentence read in a flat monotone. Composers worked this out centuries ago, which is why these letters show up in music from Bach to film scores, almost always in Italian, because the printing trade that spread written music grew up in Italy and the vocabulary simply stuck. So these tiny marks are not decoration in the margin. They are half of the expression, they cost you nothing to learn, and in this lesson we are going to read every single one of them. Start with the two words that everything else is built on, because once you have these two, the rest are just combinations. The letter P stands for the word piano, which in Italian simply means soft. Yes, the instrument is named after this. The piano was originally the pianoforte, the soft loud, because unlike the harpsichord before it you could finally play both. The letter F stands for forte, which means loud, or more precisely strong. So P is soft and F is loud. Hold those. Now let me prove how much they matter. Here is a short, plain phrase played piano, gently, the keys barely pressed, the sound held back and intimate. Now listen to the very same phrase played forte, full and strong, the keys driven down with weight. Same notes. Same pitches. Same rhythm. Nothing on the page changed except those single letters underneath, and yet the whole character moved with them. One sounds like a secret, the other like an announcement. That is the entire power of dynamics in one comparison, and everything else today is just shades in between. Between soft and loud there is a middle ground, and naturally it gets its own pair of marks. The Italian word mezzo means medium or half. So mezzo piano, written as the two letters M and P, means moderately soft, and mezzo forte, written M and F, means moderately loud. Put them with the two you already know and you have a clean four-step ladder running from quiet to strong, piano at the bottom, then mezzo piano, then mezzo forte, then forte at the top. Listen to that ladder climb, one rung at a time. First piano, soft. Then mezzo piano, a little more. Then mezzo forte, fuller still. Then forte, strong. Each step is noticeably louder than the one before it, and you can hear the music lean in as it rises. This four-step range is the everyday working zone of most pieces. A lot of music you love lives almost entirely between mezzo piano and mezzo forte, only reaching for the extremes at the big moments. That is worth remembering when you sit down to play something. If you spend the whole piece at one comfortable middle volume, you have thrown away most of the expression before you have even started. The four-step ladder is the minimum vocabulary, and it is already enough to make a plain line breathe. Speaking of the extremes, that is exactly where we go next. To push past piano and forte, you do not invent new letters. You stack the ones you have. Two PS together spells pianissimo, which means very soft, quieter than a plain piano. Two FS together spells fortissimo, very loud, stronger than a plain forte. And composers do not stop there. When they want the absolute edge of the range they write three letters, even four, triple piano for the faintest thread of sound that barely carries to the back of the hall, triple forte for an overwhelming wall of it. The rule is wonderfully simple. More letters just means more of it, in whichever direction the letter points. So now lay out the full range, from softest to loudest. Pianissimo, the faintest whisper the piece allows. Piano, soft. Mezzo piano. Mezzo forte. Forte, strong. And fortissimo, a roaring full sound at the top. Listen to it open all the way out, from that hush up to that roar. That whole span, from the quietest shout to the loudest, is your palette, and a good performer uses every bit of it. Now one idea that trips up nearly every beginner, and it is worth slowing down for. These marks are relative, not absolute. There is no fixed loudness, no decibel number, attached to forte. Forte does not mean 90 decibels. It means strong, for this music, right here. A forte in a delicate solo lullaby is far gentler than a piano played by a full brass band at the back of a stadium. The very same letter asks for a completely different real-world volume depending on the instrument, the room, and the moment. So do not read these as fixed settings on a meter. Read them as positions on a dial, and the dial is unique to each piece. One end of the dial is the softest this particular music ever gets, the other end is the loudest it ever gets, and every mark places you somewhere along that personal range. That is also why dynamics are about contrast more than about absolute level. A forte only sounds powerful because there was a piano nearby to measure it against. Take away the soft and the loud stops meaning anything. So far every mark sets a level and holds it. But volume does not have to jump from one terrace to the next. It can slide smoothly, and music has one of its most elegant symbols for exactly that. Underneath the staff you will see a long thin hairpin that opens out to the right, like a sideways letter V lying on its back, widening as it goes. That opening hairpin means crescendo, which is Italian for growing. It is an instruction to swell, to get gradually louder across the notes it stretches under, not in steps but as one continuous rise. Some composers write the whole word, crescendo, or shorten it to cresc, instead of drawing the hairpin, and it means precisely the same thing. Listen now as this line crescendos from soft up to strong. Each note arrives a touch louder than the one before, and the sound rises like a tide coming in, slow and unstoppable, pulling your ear up with it. A crescendo is how music builds tension and lifts you toward a high point. Every crescendo has a mirror image, and it does the exact opposite. This time the hairpin closes to the right, starting wide and narrowing down to a single point, like the first one flipped. That closing hairpin means decrescendo, and it has a second name you will meet just as often, diminuendo. Both mean the same thing, fade, get gradually quieter over the notes underneath. Just like the crescendo, a composer might write the word out, decrescendo or diminuendo, or shorten it to dime, rather than draw the shape. Listen as the same line decrescendos back down, easing off, the sound melting from full strength toward almost nothing, settling the music rather than driving it. Here is the simple memory hook that fixes both for good. The hairpin is a mouth. Open mouth, getting louder, that is crescendo. Closing mouth, getting softer, that is decrescendo. The wide end is always the loud end. Once you see it that way you will never misread one again, and the whole rise and fall of a phrase is sitting right there on the page for your eye to trace. Not every change in volume is gradual. Sometimes a composer wants a shock, a sudden jolt that gradual hairpins cannot give. There are two main tools for that. The first is the sforzando, written as the letters SF, or sometimes SFZ. It means strike that single note hard, a sudden punch of force coming out of nowhere, and then immediately drop back to whatever level you were at. It is a sharp accent of loudness on one note, not a lasting change. Listen to one land right in the middle of an otherwise even, quiet line, a single note that jumps out and grabs you. The second tool is the word subito, which means suddenly. Subito flips the dynamic instantly, with no ramp and no warning. The most dramatic version is subito piano, the music is rolling along loud, and then, in a single beat, it drops to a hush. Listen, loud, and then subito piano, snapping to almost silence. The effect is startling, and composers love it precisely because your ear expected the loudness to continue. Sudden dynamics are how music makes you jump, or makes you suddenly lean in to catch what just got quiet. Now put the whole toolkit onto one short phrase, and hear how these marks shape music from the inside. The phrase begins mezzo piano, moderately soft, calm and contained, holding something back. Then a crescendo opens underneath it, and the line swells, climbing through the middle, each note fuller than the last, building toward a peak. It arrives at forte at the very top of the line, the loud high point, the moment the whole phrase was reaching for. And from that summit a decrescendo takes over, easing the sound all the way back down, note by note, until it settles into a soft, quiet piano at the end, resolved and at rest. Listen to the whole arc one more time, soft, growing, strong at the peak, then fading gently home. Here is the remarkable part. The notes never changed. That rise, that summit, and that gentle landing were not in the pitches at all. They were painted entirely by the dynamics, a handful of Italian letters and two simple hairpins giving a flat row of notes its whole emotional shape. That is what these marks are for. They are the difference between playing the notes and actually playing the music. Next we turn from how loud each note is to how each note is touched, how it starts and how it stops, the world of articulation, of staccato and legato.